Hello, listener, and welcome to the Building It Online podcast. Whether you're an established business owner or you're just getting started, we are here to help you build a better online business faster. This is the place where you can tune in and learn from experienced entrepreneurs about what it really takes to grow your business in today's online environment. And be sure to check out buildingitonlinepodcast.com for more expert interviews, key insights, and up-to-date growth strategies to take your business to the next level. Hello, listener, and welcome back to the Building It Online podcast. I am really excited for the interview that I have for you guys today because today I got to sit down with my buddy, Tommy Joyner, and Tommy recently went through the experience of selling a service-based business. And if you have a service-based business or you've ever been through the experience of, working in a service-based industry, you might understand how much work is involved in building a business up like that. And what Tommy was able to do was build a business from scratch and eventually get that business running and operating at such a level that he was able to sell it to some investors. And so he had a ton of learning experience along the way. In the interview, we're going to talk about how they were able to build their business by really learning how to nail selling their service first, the value of recurring revenue, and then he walks us through the framework of what it actually takes to sell a service-based business. So if you have a safe service-based business or you're thinking about getting into the online industry and you're thinking about doing it through services, this is an incredible interview for you to listen to. So I will let Tommy take it from here. Here's the interview. All right, listeners, welcome back to the Building An Online podcast. Excited to be here with my buddy, Tommy Joyner today. Tommy, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Bryce. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dude, I'm really excited to get to jam with you because Tommy and I met many years ago in Medellin, Colombia. And Tommy has been on an awesome adventure recently selling his service-based business. So I think that there's going to be some really good insights going through this experience. But Tommy, you want to just kind of start off with, introducing yourself, man. Let the people know who you are, where you come from.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm super excited to jam with you as well, Bryce. But my name's Tommy Joyner. Obviously, I got started in online entrepreneurship probably 7 years ago now, maybe like 6.5 years ago, where I first got my foray into freelancing. And I kind of skipped the step of freelancing and doing any of the work myself, and promptly went on to start winning jobs and outsourcing that work to other people. So, for example, one of the first things that I did was focus on email marketing and email copy and sales copy. But since at the time I didn't have any idea how to write any of that stuff myself, I would sell those projects and then outsource them to other workers. So that's basically been what defined me in terms of what allowed me to live life as a digital nomad all these years in terms of what I've done entrepreneurially. From there, that morphed into a content writing service, which you mentioned at the beginning of the show that I sold in April of 2019. And then personally, I've lived in a number of countries, probably like 6 or 7 different countries for 6 months or more at a time over the past 8 years. I'm currently located in Barcelona, Spain, where I intend on having a long-term home base.
I'm going to post up for a while.
Yeah, definitely. That's the plan.
Sweet, man. Well, yeah, let's kind of dig back into how you got started in all this. So you were here in the States, right? Like, how did you get into online entrepreneurship and this whole world of building online businesses?
Yeah, man. So I originally I read the 4-Hour Workweek just like everybody else, and wanted to make that dream a reality for myself. So the first step for me was actually just getting abroad. I didn't know anything about starting a business online or making money for myself, really. I did have some sales jobs, which made it easier for me to transition into that than maybe I knew at the time. I kind of took that experience for granted, but I'm really grateful for it now. But I went and taught English in Korea. And then when I moved to Colombia, I was trying to make the dream a reality, and like exploring like a couple different options of things that I could monetize online, and quickly discovered that on these freelancing websites like Elance and Odesk at the time, now Upwork, you could create a profile as a freelancer. And, if you were uh, sneaky about it with some integrity, could win jobs and not actually do them yourself. You could hire a team to do the work for you. So that was really where I got my start.
So you're kind of arbitraging gigs on freelance sites, like getting them, bidding them on a certain project, and then outsourcing the project itself to someone who is an expert at email copywriting or email marketing, and then just taking the margins in between.
Yeah. And I think that sounds like sketchy or scary to a lot of people starting out. To me, that's just like really representative of what entrepreneurship is, selling something and making a margin off the top. I just uh, I skipped a step of fulfilling the work and just started building out a team beneath me. Of course, there's probably ethical and unethical ways to do that when I was starting out. And I think for a lot of people, it's one of the hurdles that people have when they're building their own service business is getting used to introducing their newfound clients or customers to like a project manager that's not them, or even saying that someone else is doing the work. It's sort of a mental roadblock that you have to get over, which I never really experienced because I was never doing the work to begin with.
Yeah, man, we've jammed about this a lot, and I think it's super interesting and also like very beneficial in a lot of ways that you did that because, like me coming from another side of experience, like I got really good at a service. Like I got really good at paid advertising and can deliver that service really well. But there's only so many clients I can manage doing that service. So while I can have like a good sized, business and like a good life managing paid advertising for a handful of clients, am like now in the process of like building a team and learning how to start to delegate a lot of that work and get clients to, like want our system and not want Bryce doing the work. And so that's something that I've been going through, and it's very like long process for me personally. It's been, and so I think it's really insightful, and I think a lot of people can learn from that fact that like you just got good at selling the service and immediately found people to deliver the service, and that gets you a good business. Like you can outsell you can like get the cash flow to grow the business and get good people on board to deliver the service.
Yeah, I think there's like a happy medium because I look back at some of the first things that we sold, and I mean, I'm grateful that I went that route initially. It wasn't the first couple people that I sold things to probably aren't as grateful that I took that route initially, because I guarantee that we didn't fulfill upon the work as well as we could have while we were going through the process of figuring the offer out, building out the team, and actually providing a quality service as an end result. There was a while there where I was scared to even, talk to the person that we sold things to ever again, because I didn't I didn't think we did a good job and I just wanted to take the money and run. So that was another evolution that I made in terms of like really making sure that we understood what we were actually doing, brought good people on to deliver high quality work. So that was a learning process. And hopefully over time, the results and the quality of the service offering that we gave to people down the line made up for some of the ways that we dropped the ball early on. That would be the only other thing that I talk about that I would want to mention in terms of people considering going that route. Like I really like now my philosophy is like I really believe in high quality service offerings. So Bryce, from like your perspective, like you're really good at paid advertising and you know it inside and out. So you also know if someone else can do it. I mean, what holds someone like you back is the fact that it's harder for you to let go because you have this very, very high standard of quality, which clients might accept 80% of, you know what I mean? But for you, it's like to you, 80% is an F. To them, it might not matter. So there's a balance there. It's a bit of like an equation that you have to play with.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. And so you went from kind of, I mean, when you guys were doing the Upwork thing, it was kind of like an agency model. Like you guys were kind of just taking on projects for everybody doing whatever they needed in the digital marketing realm. And then how did that transition into the company that it became?
So I think pretty early on, my business partner at the time and I like realized that we were selling ourselves, and like we got good at selling and selling even some high ticket projects, and we were making a pretty good living. Between the two of us, each of us were taking home 5 figures a month consistently for a while, and that felt pretty cool. But I think the downside was that we had to do that every month. So, we had to resell and then collect the money and then resell and then collect the money. And we didn't have anything that was recurring, and we certainly didn't have anything that resembled an asset. So through a lot of like research and reading a ton of books within the field, a book that I came across, which always comes back up in conversation, is Built to Sell by John Warlow, and that book really changed my perspective on like how we should be building the things that we're building in such a way where we could have a team deliver on the services and then ultimately have something that was an asset that someone wanted to sell someday. So that was always the direction that we wanted to go. I thought it would be cool to sell a company. I can't tell you that I ever thought I would achieve that, to be completely honest, but here we are.
Nice, man. So you guys transitioned from selling just big projects on Upwork and freelance to this more like productized service model, or like how, yeah, what would that next business be? What did the next business become? Like, so you were building to sell, and then what did that become?
Yeah, sorry, I think I left that part out. But so we were doing a lot of different things. Like we were kind of a full service digital marketing agency, really, even though at the time we didn't even know what to call ourselves. And we realized that, after having an idea of like where we wanted to go, we realized that we needed to focus on something that people bought from us on a regular recurring basis. One of the advantages to paid media, or if you're setting up a social media marketing agency that incorporates any sort of paid media, is that you can easily charge a retainer. For us, we didn't really have that part figured out. So it was a process of trial and error, trying to figure out what people would buy from us on a regular basis. But ultimately, the short of it is we started a content writing service where we charged people a monthly fee depending on how many words they bought from us, and then we sold recurring subscriptions where they would get a set number of words every single month, and then they could execute on those in the back end of the system that we created to put them together. So we connected them with a writer and then fulfilled the work.
And then that got you guys on a recurring revenue model.
Yeah. So from there, we went from one time to recurring. And even though we started out making less money, and ultimately, even throughout the entire lifetime of the business, made less money per month than we were making, um, you know, Bryce, you and I were roommates when we moved to when we traveled together last year for a little while, and throughout that time, when I still had the business, I guess 2 years ago now, but when I still had the business, I really only had to work like an hour a week, so it was a bit of a trade off. I was taking less money, but I didn't even have to work once we got it cooking, so it was well worth it.
Yeah. No, man, that's that. I think the one thing that I see over and over again with businesses is building in that recurring revenue model. Even like I charge clients a monthly recurring revenue. I couldn't imagine being like a web designer and having to go out and sell 5 or 6 new websites every month. So having that recurring revenue model, so you have some predictable revenue that you know is going to come in every month, more or less, really like gives you some peace of mind and gives you the ability to grow in a much more predictable way, and it alleviates a lot of stress. There's quite a few people I talked to. I did another interview with someone who is a financial planner, and they built their entire business model on a monthly recurring revenue on an annual basis. And they, there's a constant theme that comes up with people that I talk to is like, how can you build a monthly recurring revenue business so that you can like predict growth and have sustainability?
Yeah, that model is super attractive, by the way. But there's so many different ways to do it. Whether you're in coaching or sell info products or sell services, I think you just have to really be creative. And to be completely honest with you, like at this point, it's a non-negotiable for me. If you can't implement recurring revenue into your business, especially starting out, I would almost say not do it unless you're selling really high ticket items. And you only have to knock down a few of those, because if you really want to develop a high quality service offering as well, you're going to have to dedicate time to making that happen. And at the end of the day, recurring revenue it just alleviates so much stress, and it's really what makes your business worth something if you are ever interested in selling it.
Yeah. Cool, man. So you guys got this content marketing service going, and you had monthly recurring revenue coming in, and then comes the time when you decided to sell it, and you had never sold a business before, so you're just kind of figuring all that out as you went along. What was that? What was the experience like of selling a business,
It was
especially a
amazing.
service-based business?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was amazing. I learned a lot throughout that process. It was like really gratifying, obviously, because like we sold for a pretty good multiple, and I got more money at one time than I've ever had, way more than I've ever had in my life. And that was obviously a cool experience. But uh, I mean, I learned a lot. I don't I don't know that I would have sold the business if I felt more aligned with it. But like I'd been working on that so hard with my previous business partner. And I think we both got to the point where we realized that taking it to the next level was going to be really difficult. And honestly, we were really good fit together to go from 0 to 1. But I don't know that we were the best fit to go to the next level together. And I think deep down we both knew that. So it was just time to sell the business. So that was like part of the motivation. And then when I started going through the process of figuring out how to do that, it was really just talking to brokers and like some people that had venture funds and figuring out like what that looked like. Um, and that was so enlightening for me because had I known what the process is like to sell a business from the very get go, um, I would have done things differently, or I really think it would have enabled me to skip a lot of steps in terms of like how I looked at building the business in the first place. So there were some really, really big takeaways from there.
Yeah, you want to lay those takeaways on us?
Yeah, I think this is like the meat of it, right? So
Let's do it.
everyone who's listening, I've had lots of conversations with my broker. Quiet Light Brokerage was the brokerage that we used. I feel good shouting them out because I really respect those guys and I have a really good relationship with my broker, Brian O'Neill, over there. And he taught me a lot about what it takes to sell a business and has been so gracious to just share a bunch of knowledge with me. And as I was going through that, I think the biggest thing to realize, like when you're building a business to sell from the very get go, you need to ultimately check 4 big boxes. And they are growth, risk, transferability, and documentation. So there's 4 big categories that you have to have kind of like checked in order to have like a sellable business. And they fall within those big things. When you're talking about growth, you're talking about like what sort of marketing channels do you have in place that create a predictable system for lead generation and sales. The more of those you have in place and the more stable they are, the higher multiple you're ultimately going to command for your business. So it's really important to think about like if you're a service-based business, whether you do marketing on Facebook, LinkedIn, or cold email or whatever, you really need to make sure that you have like a system built in around that in order to sell your business. The flip side of that as well is we were a subscription business. So if you have multiple clients on or customers on recurring subscriptions plans, um, then then that's also a sellable business, and that also factors into the growth because it's still important for you to try and have like marketing channels to grow the business so that if someone takes it over, it's not just a dead business, but you can kind of get away with just having a base of subscribers that really make the business valuable. So if you have 50 customers on monthly subscriptions paying a varied amount across a varied group of people, that's obviously something that is going to be easier to grow the business if someone takes it over. And then risk, same thing. You got to make sure that you're in a super solid industry that's relatively evergreen. With service-based businesses, I really believe in selling like a commodity and not something that's wholly dependent on ROI that's going to go anywhere. Content writing or graphic design, something that's like really simple. I say differentiate yourself through execution. Um, and you want to have like a team that fulfills the work for you. So in terms of transferability, you can't be if you're an owner doing all of the work, like some of my consulting and coaching clients right now. I mean, even if you're doing a lot of revenue, if you're the bottleneck, that's going to be really hard to sell the company one day unless you sell yourself along with it to do exactly what you're doing already. Otherwise, it's kind of impossible. And then when it comes to documentation, that's more stuff like SOPs, independent contractor agreements, and stuff that you have in place with your current team to make sure that if the operation went anywhere, it's easy for someone to take over. Also, that relates to like merchant accounts and financial accounts as well. You want to make sure that all that stuff is like really like dialed in and documented. So that's huge. And then the only other thing that I will end with in terms of like things to keep in mind is like every time you sell a business, you go through a business audit. And once you're audited, and while you're selling a business, usually that happens through a third party who the buyer actually pays to audit your business to make sure that everything is as you say it is. And they make you show a bunch of different things. And through the things that they make you show, for example, like your P&L for the last 36 months, they make they go into your like email marketing accounts, they go into your ad accounts, they go into like your merchant accounts and look at your subscriptions. They look at like your customer support email, all this different stuff. They basically give you a list. And if you have that list in those four big categories that I talked about, you can basically reverse engineer what it takes to build a sellable business. So those were the big takeaways, man. I know that's like a bit of a mouthful, but if I can like summarize that for listeners, the big takeaway is like I would literally just, if you're interested in even trying to sell a business one day, you should contact a brokerage firm and just like pretend you have a business to list for sale and see what they ask you for, and then go to a firm that audits businesses that are selling and see what they ask for, and like try and fill those boxes from the very beginning.
So yeah, after going through that experience, you now kind of have some insight on like how to build a service, because I think service-based businesses are attractive for selling, because if you can build it in this way where you're not the bottleneck, where you're not the one delivering all the work, I mean that's a challenging business to grow for as a kind of a service-based person. But again, like coming from your perspective of not being the one doing the work, it kind of creates a barrier to entry that a lot of people aren't going to get into. And then you can build these monthly recurring revenue businesses that are valuable to investors.
Yeah, man. And it depends on like who buys, like who the buyer is, right? In our case, the person who bought the company just bought it as is, and then they continued to operate it with our employees and everything. And that's cool because it's just really stable. I mean, like, after I sold the business, one of the things that I wish I would have done is just planned my exit strategy a little more. Because when you're sitting on a lump of cash and you don't have cash flow anymore, like that's almost just as like causes just as much anxiety as not making as much money as you wish you could on a regular monthly basis and paying the bills. Um, but that's why it becomes so valuable, is because it's just a cash flow business. And I think service businesses more so than a lot of these other models online are a bit more anti-fragile. They're just solid businesses, especially if they're built like around a content writing service or something. If the offer is not so unique such that it is anything special, and it just you've done a really good job at executing on what it takes to build a really good business, then that's what matters. Like that's what matters. And I think that's what makes it attractive for someone that's like, oh shit, I'll pay, X amount of dollars for this because it generates me like, 20 or 30K net every month, and it's already there. It's really hard to build that up yourself, especially if you're doing it for the first time. Now that I've done it, I believe that it's easier than it would be for me to do it from the ground up, but still challenging, even if I do it now from 0 to 1.
Yeah, it still takes a lot of work. I kind of want to go back and touch on just one thing that you mentioned, because I think it's really insightful to hear. Is like you mentioned that part of what you think it was helpful for you guys in not being like a risky based business is selling something that's based more on a deliverable and not something that's ROI focused.
Yeah. So I think this is counterintuitive to like what most people talk about. Like honestly, like most of the advice that you're gonna get in terms of, especially when it comes to like creating ad copy, people will be like, hey, but like, this ad copy would be a lot better if you were talking about the result that it got for someone. Dude, we were selling content writing. Um, like they just need someone to write blog posts. As long as you're scratching an itch for someone, and then you develop a relationship and you have like a really good customer retention system, like once they've found you and they're happy with the service that you're offering, as long as they need it, they're not going to go anywhere. And you can create a really good subscription business model around that without stressing yourself out about like feeling like you have to generate X number of results for these people. Like they need you regardless. They're not demanding their freelance writers to generate them all most of the time with what they're having them write. Especially if you're just writing blog posts or like product descriptions or like web copy, like just random web copy, not sales copy, like some of the stuff that we were doing. Um, so that's my take on that. And if you're starting a business for the first time, the services that you could do that with easily are like writing or graphic design, website development or design and maintenance. All of those things people need anyway.
Just, yeah, things like services people are going to buy every month because that's what it takes to run an online business. But it's not necessarily something directly attributed to, oh, like we're going to run this advertising campaign and put $1,000 in and get $2,000 back.
Yeah. So like for you guys in the paid ad game, like, uh, people want to see a result. They're paying you to run their advertising campaign because they want it to work. So it's a bit more stressful in terms of, shit, how much money is this client actually making? Assuming you know what you're doing, it's a really good way to hold on to clients if you can generate a result for them. But I just don't think it has to be that way. Like I think like your model lends itself to that. Like if you're a paid ad guy, it lends itself to that conversation. If you're not, don't try to make it that. I guess would be my advice.
No, I think that's super smart, man. I like to call it high performance, not high stress, but but no, man, I think you're dead on. Like if someone's going out there and they're trying to start a business, you know, yeah, I think that's super wise to get into a niche that's like these are things people are buying all the time, regardless. Like they're gonna buy it from somebody. So just be a business that provides it like at a level of excellence. Like do a great job, provide a great service, provide a great deliverable, and just be there every month to help them do that. I think that's super smart, man, and really insightful. I don't hear a lot of people talking about that, and I know you've mentioned that to me quite a few times, and I think it's brilliant. I don't think you could do it with something like paid ads, but I think there's so many more places you could do it. So I think that's wicked smart, man.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it, man. I think it's something that helped us a lot from the very beginning, and like it. I mean, it eliminates a lot of stress when you're trying to start something. Like too many people when they're starting out try to be unique, and I think as entrepreneurs we all fall back into that trap. It's really it's not about uniqueness; it's about execution. That's like uh, I don't know. Not enough people say that actually. Like, some people talk about the execution, but a lot of times, like, it's just people get distracted with the ideas.
No, man, I think that's super wise. I think that a lot of people have ideas, man. Ideas aren't really worth that much. You really got like executing something is really hard. Especially getting it from nothing to something is extremely difficult.
Yeah, dude. 0 to 1, man. 0 to 1 is tough, and then 1 to 5 or 5 to 10 is also tough. But they're all different journeys.
Word, man. Well, sweet dude, this has been super insightful, and I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your wisdom of selling a service based business. I think there's so much to learn from the experience you've had, and yeah, man, just grateful for you to come on. Um, Couple of things like right at the end, we usually end with a little lightning round, kind of three quick questions so that people can get to know about like couple of things. So, are you ready?
I'm ready, man.
Let's do it. Favorite business book or podcast?
Podcast. Okay, so I I really love The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, which is my favorite book, my new favorite book. I honestly haven't been reading for a while on kind of like a business book detox. So I guess that would be my other thing to say. It's like one thing that I've learned is you can read so many books, but at some point you have to just take action. So, but the Surrender Experiment, it's really cool because it's sort of a segue between the importance of um, aligning your energy and your spirituality with your business endeavors. Um, Podcasts. I also have cut a lot of those out recently for the same reason. But I'm still big Joe Rogan fan, and I think I'm using them more nowadays to kind of let my mind unwind with cool and interesting conversations rather than trying to necessarily learn from them. Again, for the same reason, I found that just digging into the business information was sort of overwhelming.
I hear you, man. I think that's smart. I think it's better to read one book and then execute on it than it is to read like 10 books and not do anything with them.
Yeah.
Word. All right. So if you could have a board of advisors, 3 people alive or dead that you could, go to for any feedback you need on your business as you're working on it, well, who would they be?
Oh man. Okay. Miyamoto Musashi would be on that board. He wrote this book called the Book of Five Rings. He's really one of the he was a Japanese samurai, and he has like a couple other texts that he's like famous for. But if you look up the Book of Five Rings, I guess could be another one of my favorite books. He would be a mentor for me, and he would be there because he's a good reminder uh, to me about the fact that everything comes from within. I can't remember exactly how he phrases this quote, but he's like, "You don't need anything to get like bigger, stronger, richer, wiser, or more talented from the external. It all comes from within." So he would be there for that purpose. On Napoleon Hill would be on that board. Think and Grow Rich, man. I think I would have him on that board because of the fact that he's also about manifestation and just like really clarity. One of the things I've learned that clarity is really important. I think the toughest thing for people to achieve in life is knowing what they want. And he would be a good reminder to just, as long as you got the image in mind, you can achieve it. And then who else, man? The number 3 mentor that I would have would be, hmm, maybe we throw Abraham Lincoln on there, man. And the reason that I would have him is, I've always like really aspired to be a good leader and inspire and influence people, and I just really admire like all the stuff that he did throughout his lifetime with a lot of integrity throughout like a really challenging period. Man, he really kind of held the line well as a president.
I think he was a man with integrity.
Yes.
Sweet man. And then if you were starting kind of touch on this, but if you were starting all over again, like, you had sold your business and you were getting started from scratch, what would be the first couple things you would do? First 3 things you would do?
Well, I'm starting over again now, and it's ironic because I think you forget uh, what you would tell your younger self, and I'm still talking to that version of myself right now. So I mean, I would absolutely implement a business with recurring revenue. Um, I would focus on subscription based models. I would also make sure that um, like any partners that you have in business are really aligned. Like one of the reasons that my business partner and I were really successful early on in our last business was because we could both sell really well. But after a while, there were a lot of things that our skill sets, like we were missing things. Like we needed to fill in gaps, and we had too much overlap with like sales, for example, and not enough emphasis on other things. So if you're going to work with business partners, just make sure that there's a lot of alignment there in terms of how you guys complement each other. And then the other thing I would do is, um, man, I would hire things out more quickly. So I would start immediately, like anything that's taking my time that I know is important. If I can get contractors to at least help me do that and get me to 80% of what I know needs to be done and then fix the rest, then I would do that. And I would really, really audit my time viciously to make sure that I'm not spending time on shit that I could hire a VA from anywhere between $5 and $20 an hour for, because you can spend the rest of that time, on marketing and sales to get your business flowing initially, and ultimately that's going to be big ROI.
Sweet man. I dig it. Well, dude, thanks so much, man. Do you want to kind of let everyone know what you're working on now and how people can get a hold of you and learn more from Tommy Joyner?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm working on right now is I consult for people that are building service-based businesses. I have a private one-on-one consulting program that you can hit me up about if you're interested. And then I have a group coaching program that I'm partnered with a good business colleague and friend of mine, Ben McAdam, um, that helps service-based business owners learn basically everything that it takes to build a sellable business. Between Ben and I, we've sold 3 businesses that are similar to what these are about. It's actually sort of a mentorship program. So we have an accelerated course that you go through, but we also have a private group that we have weekly Q&As and an accountability program set up in. So you can find more information about me either on Instagram is a pretty good place to follow me, Tommy_Joyner, or ready for this price, servicebusinessballers.com. Check that out.
Oh, I like it. Awesome. And we'll make sure to have those linked up in the show notes too. So anyone who wants to just click on those links can go find you guys.
Awesome, man. Yeah, dude. Thank you. This was great, man. I'm really thankful that you had me on, and I hope this is valuable to the audience.
No, man, I really appreciate you making the time to come on here. I think that you have some incredible insight for service-based business owners and for anyone who's really getting started, because I think there's so much opportunity in the service space, but it's a really challenging space to figure out how to do it right in a way that you end up owning a business and not, building like a high-paid job, right? And so I think you've got a ton of insight. I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. And hopefully we can, have you on again later and talk more about selling service-based businesses.
Yeah, dude. Well, yeah, have a good one, man, and we'll talk soon.
You too, man. Later. That was it, you guys. My interview with Tommy. I hope that you picked up some good nuggets from that. I know I got a lot out of listening to the framework for what it actually takes to sell a service-based business. I did not know what investors would be looking for, and so I really definitely took some notes on that one. If you like this interview, please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes, because that really helps us promote the podcast, get the word out there, and we could do more interviews like this, and we can get cooler people to come on and share this kind of knowledge. We hope you have a great day out there, and we'll see you next time.